So by the time I was 12 years old, I had my whole world figured out. I grew up in North Dakota, and my dad was my best friend. We had this amazing relationship based on playfulness, wit, charm, and sports. My dad would drive 4 hours to watch me play a game of basketball, and it was not worth it. I had this perfect life as a kid. It's really easy growing up in North Dakota. I didn't have a whole lot to worry about. School was 3 blocks away, kids everywhere, a big yard, a bike. I thought everybody grew up the same way that I did. And I used to keep this box underneath my bed, and inside this box, it had all these things on what my life was going to look like when I got big. There was this huge white house with the white picket fence and green shutters, these women in suits who were living and working in New York City, this tall, dark, handsome guy who was going to be my husband. My boyfriend's 5'10", so you win some, you lose some. Just kidding, he's amazing. But this was going to be my life, and I convinced myself and everybody else around me that this was going to happen. I was going to grow up, go to college, have an amazing job, have an amazing house, amazing husband, 2.2 kids, and a dog. But when I was 16 years old, my reality got shattered because I learned about my dad's reality. I was sitting home, it was the summer before my sophomore year in high school, and my dad came home from work and asked if me and my younger brother and older sister could leave for a couple hours so we could talk to our mom. And I knew something was terribly wrong. I was the most apprehensive, but we all left, and I came back, and my dad was sitting upstairs. My mom wasn't there. My dad was sitting upstairs looking somber, embarrassed, and nothing like this strong superhero dad that I knew so well. And that's the day I learned my dad was a gambling addict. He had spent the last few years of his life magically living this double life. When he was with us, everything was great. When he wasn't, he was at casinos. And as most addictions do, they hit rock bottom. And my dad owed a lot of people to a lot of money, and we didn't have it. A lot of money to a lot of people, and we didn't have it. And unfortunately, that wasn't my dad's first introduction with addiction. He went through drug and alcohol recovery when I was a kid. I've never seen my dad drink or do drugs. I've never even seen him be tempted. But my mom, for years, dealt with that addiction on the receiving end, which comes with deception, lies, cheating, and irresponsibility, words that I would never use to describe my father. So for her, that was it. She kicked my dad out of the house that day, and for a 16-year-old girl who loves her dad more than life, I was devastated, and I was really angry. Here's my broken dad who needs fixing, and my mom doesn't want to help him. So I spent the next 3 years of my life resenting my mom and trying to fix my dad. Why don't you just stop gambling? Why can't you just stop doing this and we can go back to being a family? I didn't get addiction. I didn't understand it. It was really hard to love somebody who had an active addiction. And that's when I became a runner. I needed something to do with all of this negative emotional energy building up inside me, so I started running. And I quickly, thankfully, got consumed by all the lessons that sport teaches you. Taking things one step at a time, knowing that you're going to be on some shitty roads in life. I don't know if I can swear at TED, but it's probably going to happen again, so glad that's okay. And I said, I have to take things one step at a time. I can't go out and run 5 miles and not do 1 through 4 in between. And I told myself, I'm not going to be a victim of my dad's choices. I'm not going to be a victim of coming from a broken home. I'm going to go get all these things that I wanted in my life. And I convinced myself if I could just get there, if I could get to this place that existed in this box, my life was going to be okay. My life was going to be amazing, extraordinary. So I go 1,000,000 miles a minute, college, graduate early, grad school, find myself in DC, working, take a job in Philadelphia when I was 24 years old. And from the ages of 24 to 26, I had no clue who I was. All these things I thought that I wanted, that I was working toward, I started to question everything. I didn't think they were going to make me happy. What if I get there and I don't feel this happiness that I've been banking on for years, that I've been working toward? I felt like a doctor who might have been in school for 7 years and realized that they don't want to be a doctor anymore. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't have a lot of passion in my life. I didn't have a lot of emotion. I didn't have a lot of friends because I didn't know who I was. And I didn't know where to look. I knew I needed purpose or some sort of answers for my life. And I think all of us go through that. We want to know why we're here. And these emotions started to consume me those couple years of my life. And I, at some point, said, I got to quit my job. If I don't quit my job or do something, I'm going to stay in this place the rest of my life. So I gave notice, and I got approached by this amazing company to go work for them. Big, huge job for a 26-year-old. And I thought, you know what? I've never been in the for-profit world before. This is a huge responsibility. I'm going to learn a lot about myself. I'm pretty sure my mission isn't here. But I'm going to be able to figure out who I am and then really put my time into my purpose. That was my plan. Well, those past 10 years of my life, the only thing in my life that was consistent and stable was my running. I'd become a marathoner at that point, and every day in Philadelphia, 5:30 in the morning, I was running. Spring, summer, winter, fall, Tuesday, Friday, Sunday, that was my time and my space, and I felt so alive and so much like who I was, like I really was when I was a runner. And there was this homeless shelter, not even a half mile away from my apartment, that I had ran by and walked by literally hundreds of times before, and I didn't give a damn about the people that I saw outside that shelter. But for whatever reason, in May of 2007, there were these jovial group of guys who started to wave at me and say good morning to me, and I started to wave back, and pretty soon we have this amazing rapport happening that's really sarcastic. They're asking me if all I do is run all day. I'm asking them if all I do is stand there all day, and it was really easy for me to talk to them that way because they reminded me so much of my dad, who is generous and friendly but a little rough around the edges. And fortunately, I was smart enough to figure out at some point in those next couple of weeks that I'm cheating these guys. Here I am running by them, moving my life forward emotionally, spiritually, mentally, and physically, and I'm leaving them on that corner. Running doesn't discriminate. Doesn't matter if you were white, black, rich, poor, and I didn't think it mattered if you were homeless or not. This is perfect. I'm going to start a running club. So I call the shelter, I talk to the director, tell him my idea, and he tries to think of the nicest way to tell me that homeless people don't run. Do you want to come and volunteer in the soup kitchen? Would you rather come and do something else? These guys are not going to be interested. And I said, no, but if you can go ask them. If anybody says yes, I'll be there 3 days a week. I'll take care of everything. You don't have to worry about a thing. He told me not to get my hopes up, but that he would ask the people living in that shelter. And a week and a half later, I get an email from him with the names of 9 guys and their shoe sizes asking me what's next. Right around this same time, I get this call from this amazing company with this incredible job opportunity. More money than a 26-year-old should have and an awesome opportunity to travel the country, and I took that job. I said, okay, I'm going to take it, but can I have 5 weeks? Because I have this idea to start this running club that I just want to get stabilized, that they'll work without me. And fortunately, they said yes. So I go up to the shelter that night, and these guys haven't met me, and I'm all excited, and I walk in, and some of the guys look at me and cross their arms and, ask, who's this girl? Some of the guys lean forward, and they're like, who is this girl? So I had a mixed emotions there, and I just opened up about my dad and running and everything that the sport has done for me. And I gave everybody shoes and new clothes that day. But the most important thing that happened was everybody had to sign this dedication contract if you wanted to join this running club, which was all it was supposed to be. That said, if you want to be a part of this, you got to show up every day, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 6 a.m., and you have to be on time. You have to come with a positive attitude. You have to support your teammates and respect yourself. I didn't look at these guys and say, oh, God, you're homeless. If you can make it once a week, that's totally fine. Or if you show up late, I bet living in the shelter is really challenging. Totally fine if you're late. I looked at them and gave them the same expectations of them as I have of myself. No excuses, standards of excellence. And I swear to you, it was almost as if these guys were waiting for someone to demand such excellence from them. Waiting for someone to look at them and see something differently in them. And we all signed that piece of paper that day, including me, and we had our first run on July 3rd of 2007. This is me and those first group of guys. There's 2 people in there who aren't homeless, and you can try to guess who they are, who they aren't, but that's the beauty of it, you can't tell. And I had some media contacts. I wanted to get the word out about what's going on, because I have to take this job soon, and I want to get more people involved. I tell the media what's happening, and they have the same reaction. And homeless people just don't run. What are you talking about? They could not believe that this was actually going on, because there is this unfortunate stereotype about homelessness, that these individuals are lazy, they don't want to work, and they sure as shit don't want to work hard. And there is this elitism about running. It is hard. It is for those who are ambitious, driven, type A, focused, and responsible. And it was just this constant contrast. It didn't work together. So I show up that morning, and you would have sworn the Pope was in town. Every media station, every newspaper on the corner of 13th and Vine in Philly to have to understand. They had to ask this burning question of why these homeless guys are running. And they get the same answer that you or I would give. I want to try something new. I wanted to meet new people, see if I was good at this, get healthy. And all of a sudden, these stories start to be written about this unlikely group of runners Monday, Wednesday, Friday, leaving from the corner of 13th and Vine. And my phone starts ringing, and my email starts getting all of these messages about people wanting to come and run with us. And this circle starts to grow from me and these guys to 15 and 20 people, the most diverse groups of folks you're ever going to see. And over those next couple weeks, there were two amazing observations that happened when I had to ask myself some big questions. The first one was that these guys were showing up, and they were there every day, and they were on time. I am a huge believer in voluntary behavior. I think it speaks volumes, and I had to learn through my dad the hard way that you cannot force anybody to change, especially a grown man. And the second one was this notion of tracking these guys' miles on a poster board. A huge white poster board, names on the left, numbers at the top. I would take a marker next to everybody's name, Joe, Mike, Craig, and color in the miles for that day, and they were cumulative from the days before. And these guys would fight for the best seat behind my shoulders to watch me give them credit for the work that they did. And that's when I had this huge aha moment that no matter how many differences exist between me and those guys, our races, our religions, our upbringings, our realities, our socioeconomic status, that because we are people, because we are all human beings, we want the same thing. You and me, we all want the same thing. We want to be noticed, we want to be recognized, we want to be appreciated, valued, cared for, loved, and cheered for. We seek it out in our friendships, in our relationships, and our jobs, and if we don't get them in those places, we go find new friends, new relationships, and new jobs. And this question starts forming, this theory starts forming in my head of, oh my God, what if we can change the way that these individuals see themselves? From somebody who is homeless or undeserving to somebody who is a runner, a teammate, a friend, responsible, reliable, disciplined, focused, and a goal setter. What if we can do that? And if we can do that, can we seriously, profoundly change the direction of their lives to get them out of their situation and into a place of self-sufficiency? And this question is a huge question. I start talking to anybody who will listen to me about this idea, not taking this huge job, and I'm supposed to do this, build this nonprofit, start with emotional transformation, then building these components. It makes so much sense. Nobody thought it made sense. Nobody. My mom, my dad was concerned for my safety, ironically enough. My mom was wondering how I'm going to pay my bills, very valid questions to ask. I didn't have any of those answers. And this was a big moment for me where I had to stand out on this limb and ask myself these what-if questions. If you haven't had to do this yet, at some point in your life you will. You have to look for no validation around you. I had to say, okay, what if I take this job and just continue to run with these guys when I can? And I'll give back when it works well for me. I can't do that. I'm going to wonder the rest of my life, what could this have been? I can't do that. What if I don't take this job and I give this everything I have, everything in my bones, and it doesn't work? What if I'm left with nothing? What if everybody quits and this idea is as stupid as everybody says it is? All right, I'm going to pick myself back up and I'm going to go find a new job and I'll be okay. But the third what if it works? What if it actually works and we can change the direction of people's lives by changing the way they see themselves? And that question, on top of the personal clarity in my life that I had been looking for, searching for years, nothing good came out of my dad's addiction. Nothing. It caused tears and heartache and hardship. And when bad things happen to us, when things happen to us that we don't understand, we need answers to move on. We need someone to tell us why this had to happen. And for years I didn't have that. But now I'm starting to get that. The only reason I gave a damn about those guys was because they reminded me of my dad, and I wouldn't have cared about them if my dad didn't have all those struggles. And when your life starts to make sense like that, you start to pay attention. And I knew, this is what I'm supposed to do with my life. So I called up that job and told them, I can't do this. I found my mission and my purpose, and I have to give it everything I got. That was over 5 years ago. This organization has grown. We've helped over thousands of people change the way they see themselves. We've helped close to 750 people find employment by changing the way they see themselves. You're all smart people, and if you want to learn more about Back on My Feet, I'm sure you can Google it and find out how. However, the question I want to pose to all of you, and what I want all of us to think about, is that that question, the idea of changing the way we see ourselves so we can change the direction of our lives, is not just one for the homeless. It is one for all of you in this room and one for myself. Think about all the things in our life that we say that we should be doing. We should all over ourselves. I should be working out. I should be going to the gym. I should go to church. I should spend more time with my kids. I should start this business I've always wanted to do. Oh, I would do these things only if. And we stay in this place, and shoulding ourselves makes us feel good. At least we know we should be doing it, right? But we never do. Why don't we do? There was this member that told me this quick story. He told me about his journey to sobriety. 4 times in his life he tried to get sober. He had several days behind him, each of these 4 times. And he was at this point for him where he had to ask himself, am I gonna do this? Am I seriously gonna live this life of sobriety? And every time he said no. And the reason he said no, the reason why he wasn't able to take that step was because of this unknown of what that looked like. All of his life, he was a struggling addict. He knew how to do that. He was very good at it. And it was a space that he understood, and if he always was trying to get sober, that's what he could spend the rest of his time and energy doing. But if he actually got sober, no idea what that was gonna feel like. Am I gonna be good at this? Is it gonna give me all these hopes and dreams and expectations that I have of being sober? What if it doesn't? Then what do I bank on? If that doesn't give me the happiness, then what do I do? So he stayed put and didn't take those steps. Our current identities can rob us of our current hopes and dreams. They can challenge us not to move and to stay put. Everyone in this room deserves to ask themselves why they are shooting all over yourself, why you're shooting all over yourself, and why you won't move over here. It's a question that we all, I think, can learn a lot from and ask ourselves what we're so scared of. If we can set the right expectations, that it is gonna be a little bit scary. It's gonna be a little uncomfortable. But isn't that okay? Isn't that what life's all about? Thank you.